The opinions expressed in the following are those of its participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the producers and the Six Talk Podcast Network. Also, the following contains mature material and mild language, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Discretion is advised.
Well, here we go on this Wednesday evening, September the 11th, 2019, lest we forget. And yeah, I get it. 18 years ago today, a lot changed. And it's a little muted these days, I think. There were the usual batches of memorials we often see at Ground Zero and in Pennsylvania, and the usual commemorations. It's a little bit more like, I haven't been watching the 24-hour news cycle today. So I can't say I don't know to the extent of the coverage we've seen today.
I've had one person at work mention September 11th. I would say it's very muted nowadays.
Yeah, it's been so long, which is crazy to think. And I think you think about, we can remember where we were, and there are a lot of people who can't remember anything. But it was crazy.
I'd rather forget, but I do remember.
I have coworkers who were in second grade when that happened.
Yeah, like it's kind of crazy. Like for myself, I remember it so vividly because our teacher teaching us law in high school was like a go-getter, and she actually brought the TV and we were watching it live on the TV, and it was the snow because it wasn't getting very good reception, and it just made it that more eerie and very just bizarre. It was so, we couldn't believe what we were saying. It was crazy because like it was just such bad reception and everything else. And the other thing was they never told us anything was wrong throughout the whole day. They never mentioned it. And I remember my mom said she thought that was odd because she said when Kennedy was shot and killed, they let them know immediately and let them out of school. So it was interesting how they handled it.
I was in 6th grade. They wheeled the TV in as well. They said something was wrong, which was blatantly obvious.
Well, it's kind of weird because for us, it sounded like they didn't want us to know at all. They didn't want to disrupt the environment and stuff like that. And I guess it was kind of teachers' discretion, but they'd rather they not done that.
And we did not get to go home early, which was fine. And I remember on the way home, my friends and I would theorize, I wonder if they're going to hit the CN Tower next. And we weren't so much scared as curious, I remember.
Well, the thing is, remember, like all the planes, they came to Canada and they let them in and stuff like that because no one really knew what was going on. Like that's how crazy it was. It was
that's the impetus for Come From Away, the musical.
Yeah.
My day was a pretty rude awakening because I was still early in my current, like my job at the time. Well, I'm still with that company now in many ways. So I had worked late the night before. Yeah, so I was still very much asleep, and my radio, like I had my alarm set to a certain time, and then it was the rudest awakening I could ever recall my radio giving me, because it was on 680 News, and then I heard, the first reports, like it was already a couple hours. Like by the time I woke up, maybe more than an hour or two had already passed from the initial incidents. And I was so groggy when the radio just mentioned this such and such had happened at the World Trade Center. I thought I was hearing things. And then as I really became alert, I saw to the great how bad it really was. And I was transfixed to the television. I turned on the TV, transfixed for the rest of the morning. The thing was, I had some chores to do in the house at the time, and I got something in the mail, which coincidentally, not too long after, the doorbell rang, and my mother, I think it was my mother, she shouted upstairs, "Hey Mike, you have a package!" with all this happening, and I just thought, wow, what timing. And that's how I spent the rest of the afternoon, or late morning, early afternoon, assembling what I got in the mail at the time.
Was it a Gundam?
No, it was something else. It was something else, but I'll tell you about that maybe off air. And then in the evening, I actually went to York University to meet up with some friends. Actually, people who were in the Japanese club there. Yes, I was meeting them. And that was a rather subdued feel as well. That's as I remember September 11th. Now, I always mention the roots of my family are based in New York. I have relatives who are still in New York City, so my concern was with them. Mercifully, none of them were anywhere close to the southern tip of Manhattan where it happened, so that's there. But obviously, if you're a New Yorker, everything changed that day for you. Anyway, 18 years on, don't know really what to say 18 years on. As I said, like, I mean, it's been that long. Anybody who would have been alive at the time are young adults now. So you remember, but it's for those of us who were at least didn't have a real stake, lose loved ones, etc. All that, like, yeah, it's a little subdued. The emotions aren't as raw. I don't know how it feels, and I don't know how it feels for anybody who did have that, who did lose a loved one. So I wonder how they feel on this day, and that's where my thoughts are now. It's on them, and it's on, well, we in recent months we've heard about first responders now, who have come down with this debilitating conditions. Many of them dying because of the conditions that they faced while rummaging through everything in the aftermath. So those are where my thoughts are today. And we'll worry about all the policies another time. That discussion will always be there. It's been ongoing for 18 years. We can put it aside for maybe just a day. Anyway, that's the serious part of the show. Well, until maybe the bullet segment. So Mike Nicholas, James Austin, Kevin Ng around the table for episode 14 of the Anime Roundtable version 2.0, an episode that was suggested by the one person who is not here this evening. Mohammed Shamarki wanted to do this episode in the aftermath of seeing Makoto Shinkai's latest movie, Weathering With You. Its North American premiere was this past Sunday here at the Toronto International Film Festival, which is still ongoing. There's one more showing of the film this Saturday. This Saturday afternoon. There was one yesterday afternoon. I was considering going to that one.
I think they were sold out, though.
That was sold out, but
they were sold out in seconds.
They had a rush line, but trust me, that rush line, not many people got in.
It wasn't worth it for me, so I'll wait for the wider release. The thing is, you three and another friend, well, yeah, you two, Mohammed and another friend all got in to see... a friend of Mohammed's went to see the North American premiere, and Makoto Shinkai was at it.
Yes.
So that's why that's the whole idea for this episode. We're going to talk at length about the premiere, what they saw. There was a Q&A, from what I understand. So
there was an introduction,
a brief Q&A.
A brief Q&A, some thoughts. And the impressions of seeing Makoto Shinkai here in Canada for the first time, and maybe what he said about being in Toronto. It was apparently his first trip to Canada. Where do you want to start with this story? Because I'm going to let you guys, I want you guys to drive, and then the driver bailed out. So, but where do you guys want to start with this story? Because this is a very Toronto anime story, I think.
I'm still wondering if he knew what was going on, because supposedly Makoto Shinkai only arrived, I guess, around the noon hour. That's what Mohammed
he arrived
and so we were thinking to ourselves,
late morning. So
if he came from Tokyo, if he came from Japan, he must have been jet lagged. We're like, he looked pretty good for a guy who had just arrived in I had no idea what the heck was going on, or his body probably did. So I'm not sure if they just stuffed some caffeine into him, or
maybe adrenaline too. He knew he understood what was going on. He understood the TIFF is a thing.
It's become, we were talking about, it's become the vehicle in the last decade. It's the start of the prestige and the Oscar season that people are looking at these movies for February for the Oscars and stuff like that. And a lot of them know it. And G-Kids knows it, the distributor for the North American release of Weathering With You and stuff like that. So they've done it with the Ghibli stuff with Takahata, because remember, he was at the Oscars and they were the ones that got him there, and So you never know. We
Yeah,
might see
that's right,
Shinkai there too if he
and
gets
G-Kids
that far.
and G-Kid and TIFF during the off season does show had been showing a fair number of Miyazaki stuff.
Yeah, they have been showing a lot of the Ghibli library and stuff like that across North America, and they did a lot more than I'd say Disney ever did. That's for sure. Like it feels like every year they have a different festival or they're celebrating a different movie because an anniversary is coming out. And you're like, man, the library is just so big. And they brought all those other ones, remember, that Disney never really brought over.
Well, yeah, to this day, I still appreciate Ocean Waves.
Yeah, like
finally
Ocean
brought
Waves,
Ocean
even though
Waves.
it's subtitled, it was great. Like, they had a theater showing, they had the Blu-ray DVD, so like, and that was when people gave up on. Like, they never thought it would happen.
My favorite Ghibli film of this moment, only yesterday, finally came out.
And that
Thanks
got
to
a dub
them.
even too. Yeah, they went.
So let's go back to Shinkai then.
So I guess
Where do you
we
want to
could
start?
say
'Cause-
we were lucky to get into the theater first of all,
Well, even though you
because
guys
it's
had
TIFF.
tickets-
Remember,
it's
so
TIFF.
you have to line up and somehow get in there.
But you had tickets. That's the thing. Like, I mean,
yeah,
Mohammed
Mohammed, like
was a member, so that's what
Mohammed
he was.
was already in the theater because
Mohammed was a fucking soul saver. I don't know, like I'm not sure how many people he probably had to fight off for those seats he got us because he got us good seats.
and he also had to sneak into the line too. Because
You know, you're gonna get him banned like from the next
I
TIFF.
don't
They're gonna
fucking
watch
know
him
who
like
Muhammad is. It's fine.
Don't worry, we'll plaster his picture everywhere.
Whereas we were at Hooters.
Yeah, we
outside
got to
because the
start at Hooters.
because the
start-
line was that long to get into the theater.
Oh wow! I thought you were just there for a drink in the view.
Well, it's
No.
weird. Like we're laughing because
No.
I'm thinking to myself, Hooters is still here, and I'm like, of all the things in downtown Toronto, I'm like, how are they still
view's
here
not
after all
that
these
great
years
at
for
Hooters
Hooters?
anyways.
And who in the neighborhood is going to this Hooters? Which
Well,
makes
I
it the
mean,
only
when I
Hooters
went,
I
the
know
one
of.
that
in the
was-
city.
wasn't.
The other thing is that's probably why it stayed there. It's that type of it's the entertainment district. So for better or worse.
But yeah, no, we were like, and we got there a half hour before, and we were at Hooters, and we're like, okay, maybe we'll get there, and then we're like, Mo's texting us saying, I'm trying to get the seats and save them. We're like, I wonder if he's going to be able to do it, but somehow we got there. I think we might got there right at 6 when it started, but
We got
luckily,
there at maybe 5:45,
yeah, well,
give
they
or
ca-
take.
But they definitely started a little later because they had to get everyone in that theater, and it was like
Yeah, especially
run
if you
on
were
military precision,
Well,
to put it lightly.
I suppose rush line. If you miss the first couple minutes, that's the thing about being in the rush line. But if you had a real ticket, that's another. I would like to think that would have been another story.
Mm-hmm.
They had to be sure about that. So so because those guys paid for the privilege to be there from the start, I suppose. You tell me if I'm wrong. It's just it's been a long time since I think I told the story last episode about my lone experience at TIFF, which would have been to see a screening of Princess Mononoke. Said friends, and a few of those friends I met up on during the evening after on 9/11, like at York University. We were I was with them, a good handful of these same friends, to watch Princess Mononoke. But we got there late enough, and we ended up being being forced to sit right in the front. There, and I said last episode, I could think of a Seinfeld gag in the way we ended up having to set up to prop ourselves to watch it, right?
It's kind of funny because that's what Shinkai, one of the things he asked in the Q&A, he kind of like went off his answer and said, I wonder how these people in the first 3 rows, like he said, I feel bad for you guys. Like, I'm not sure how was watching this movie. Like he was wondering he wondered if they had like any enjoyment at all.
And how did they
because they're
feel?
cleaning
How
up.
did they feel? What did they say?
They seemed to be not care. They were just glad.
They
to,
were
I
glad-
guess, be
No,
in
I
the
think
room
they
with
were
him and
happy.
to see
Or
I
at the
think they
very
were-
least, no one admitted otherwise.
I think they were happy to be to get a backhand from Makoto Shinkai right there. So because Makoto Shinkai knew they were there. Okay, so the atmosphere. I mean, it sounded like this was very much on the calendar of fandom in the city.
Yeah, and I think
It
there
acted-
might have been some people, you know how sometimes people do travel to TIFF and stuff like that. So I'm sure there were a few people that for this show, the showing we went to, and the other showings, that might have been definitely
This
from
was-
out of
this
town,
might
because
have been-
remember, because this is a big event and
This was-
stuff
yeah.
like that.
TIFF
And
is-
it only had just come out in Japan in July.
Came out.
So you think
came out
about
around
it.
the same time as the Kyoto Animation Fire, right? I think give or take a week or something like that.
So yeah, it's very fresh and stuff like that. And I'd say for overseas, we might have been one of the first times we
It was
had
the
that,
North American premiere.
I know it's North American, but outside, as in overseas in general, for an English sub. You know what I mean?
You know what? I maybe it's worth double checking. Yes, it was the North American premiere, but was it the premiere? Was it its first overseas premiere of any sort?
Of the English subs and that. But yeah, definitely, it was good translation from what we saw. There were a few things. The
Well, we've
songs
had
weren't
that.
the songs weren't translated and stuff like that, but you could tell they were getting
Radwimps again.
Yes, of course. Yeah, he said in the Q&A, because someone had to ask about the music, and it's so weird because we've all of us have watched all his movies, and it was only the last movie that had this band, and people have attached themselves to this band.
And
I guess
Radwimps
because it was
has
so successful
become-
for Your Name, you know
And
what I
then,
mean?
and then Radwimp's popularity has gone to yet another level because of it, right?
And it was kind of that question of, will he have them back again?
And Shinkai's kind of interesting in the way he chooses in the way he gets the music for his movies. There's always a story behind the music as well.
He
which
talked about
there's
that, yeah, the
like-
music and how it fits with
I
the
mean,
narrative.
I mean,
and the-
even with 5 centimeters, like the one that still sticks out to me is 5 centimeters per second because he used an
folk
existing
song, yeah.
yeah,
The
he used
folk
an
song,
existing song. One More Time, One More Chance, which had been out for for a good decade beforehand, but that was the soundtrack for the for 5 centimeters.
I really like when directors and producers go that route, and not to just arbitrarily have a song created for this movie.
Well, yeah,
Nice touch.
Yeah, although that obviously wasn't the case with Radwin's involvement in in Shinkai works, but still,
with these two, and then
Still-
he said next time he might do something different, of course,
Maybe,
because
maybe
I think
not.
he's it's hard to say, but of course commercial success is a key factor, as we found out in the Q&A from him as well.
Yes.
okay, well.
But if you want,
Where do you want to have
We'll
this
give
conversation
you-
go first? Do you want to go with the Q&A? Do you want to describe a little bit about the movie itself?
we can start a bit. Like he had
the
an
Q&A
introduction, and he was glad to be here and to see how everyone respond. And he had a good seat, to say the least. It's like we were actually very close to Shinkai.
We were
Now that I
quite
think-
close.
It's like we weren't in the touching range, but we could have probably leaped on him.
I guess,
Dogpile on Shinkai! Dogpile! Okay.
I guess for me, like, so I know in an earlier episode I was telling you guys that I did not want to see this movie unless he was going to come. So when Mo approached me saying, "Oh, well, looks like he's coming," then I said, "Well, shit. Okay, give me a ticket then."
Well, yeah, now you're obliged, right?
And
Locked in.
And I had friends the morning that the general public tickets were released. I had friends saying, "Oh my god, I can't buy a ticket. It's already sold out." And this was like 5 minutes into the release for the tickets, and then
And
Yeah,
but
Mo was the
had
savior. He
inside,
had
Mo
those-
had inside track.
There
right?
was like
As a
the
member.
inside track, as he says, the people that I guess they are year-long members of TIFF, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ones that buy the packages are the second tier.
yes, I think
And then there's
Mohammed
the
was
general
in the-
public.
I believe Mohammed was the second tier.
He is the second tier, yeah. He is
And-
another.
I give the man credit. I give the man a lot of credit that he was able to snag them the way he did.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah,
And he must have been tired that day. That was his third movie, he said, that day that he was watching.
He is a
Yeah,
TIFF
he was-
goer. He is like I know people at work who are TIFF goers. Mohammed fits that to a T. What from the sense I get.
And so I guess for me, I was feeling, I wouldn't say excited, actually. I was just thinking, I wonder how this is going to turn out. I wasn't thinking, oh man, I can't wait to see this film. No, I was just like, we'll see how this goes. And I assumed it would be entertaining. And yeah, I thought it was very entertaining.
Okay.
So we
was-
should
it was
give
a lot of
you
fun.
We should give
Give
you
me
the
the most-
shortest
Yeah, without-
spoilerific
well, the
way
biggest-
of describing it. So what I can tell you is
The basic premise without really
Well-
spoiling anything.
basically after you finish watching this movie, you will have the biggest craving for a Big Mac and want to go to McDonald's. I guarantee you, because all of us afterwards went to a McDonald's and we had a Big Mac. And
You're
it was
a
all
liar,
because of
James.
Shinkai.
You're a liar.
Well, didn't you watch the same movie as me? I remember him scrunching down into that Big Mac, saying it was the most delicious thing he had had.
Oh no, I was lying about the fact. You were lying about the fact that we went to McDonald's after. That's all.
But I guarantee you, you had the thought of wanting to go there.
That's an
Yeah,
interesting
not really.
spoiler right there.
But no, there was a lot going on in that movie that we were talking about. I think I was talking to Kevin about it's set in Tokyo, and he has done stuff obviously in Tokyo and stuff like that, but it felt a more lived in setting, a more lived in city. There was like a more of vibrancy to the setting. I felt like, I'm not sure if Kevin, would you say that is true? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, and there was definitely ties in my mind to Garden of Words, because there was a lot of, obviously, weathering with you, rain plays a factor in the scenes, a lot of the scenes, and that was true of Garden of Words as well.
Okay, so to give a very quick synopsis to this film, a young man goes to Tokyo from a small town by himself with barely any money. He's on the run. Or not on the run so much as he ran away.
From home.
Yes, he ran away. And a chance encounter with a man that he bumps into that saves his life causes him to find a way to live in Tokyo. And soon after, he meets a girl who gives him the Big Mac when he was in trouble early on.
And starving.
And this encounter leads to these two kids becoming friends while trying to make some extra money. And there isn't there's no point in hiding this fact. There is
because it's in the promotion stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
she's like,
There's
what
a
they
super-
want to say,
yeah.
Sunshine Girl, and
there's
Shinkai.
there's a supernatural element to this show, and
And
that
Shinkai promoted that when he was talking, I know, through many of the things about Sunshine Girl or Sunshine Boy, I guess that they...
In Toronto, Sunshine Girl has.
I know, very different.
I knew you were going to mention that.
Yeah.
I had a feeling you would.
Go
I
ahead.
had to bring that shit up. In any case,
The
good thing
you
is
saw
no
that
one
one
mentioned-
coming right down Yonge Street.
The good thing is no one mentioned that to Shinkai. It's like...
What was there a snicker
No,
when you
because...
said Sunshine Girl?
No, because he asked about if there's a similar term in Canada or something like that, and it didn't cross my mind. And I'm like, wow, I guess we had a decent audience with a brain that was still functioning.
no, that ran through my mind at some point in the film.
To say when the term Sunshine Girl came? Okay, well, in this context, Sunshine Girl.
Yes,
Let's
because
go back to this context.
because she can bring forth the sun for a brief period of time.
During the rain and stuff like that, and supposedly there's been more rain in Tokyo and stuff like that. That's
Than
why
ever
Shinkai is
before.
talking about, I don't want to say global warming, but climate change and stuff like that.
Well, he
And
does
it is-
talk. He has that habit of talking about overarching issues. I mean, when we look back on Your Name, this was made This was made a couple years after, well, about 5 years after the Great East Japan earthquake. So it resonated with Japanese citizens because at the center of that story was a disaster.
And I guess that was a question mark too, because to veer off course quickly, in the Q&A, I guess they asked him about what he learned, I guess, from Your Name and having that success, all that stuff, and what stuck out. And he said the one thing he was surprised about is a lot of people, I guess, in Japan were very angry about him taking like the earthquake and that and making it quote unquote into a movie. And I never really thought about it in that context. You know what I mean?
Wait, what?
Don't you remember when he was saying that? That was one of his talking
Okay,
about the
so
answers about
some people
how-
were upset about using a disaster as
I can't remember what it was
as a big
like.
plot line.
I don't want to call it disaster
In
porn,
this
but
film?
you know,
In this
no,
film?
no. I'm talking about Your Name. Remember? Because they were saying about Your Name between that and Weathering with You and what he learned from Your Name. Because remember, it had a big commercial success.
Yes.
And he was talking about how some people were upset, and he was surprised how they were upset over him using his artistic license, like, in that I guess it hit a nerve because As you said, with many disasters and many things, right?
I see.
It can either be too close or, you know what I mean? And sometimes it's unintentional.
Well, okay.
That must have been the
that's the
part where I
first
zoned
time.
out.
Yeah, that's the first time I found out that there was
And I
some
hadn't heard that,
pushback on
and I
that.
hadn't
That
heard
was the
that
first time.
before, which it was
So-
like thinking about it, I'm like, wow, really? And I'm like, and then I thought back to it, and I think about it, and I'm like, okay, I could kind of see it, but you think about that artistic license, and does that mean we're gonna, like, I'm trying to think, you don't want to restrict or whatever, like it. I don't feel like it wasn't like copy and paste. Like you have to have some artistic merit and stuff like that, but you kind of understand the human element too. You know what I mean?
I suppose.
So it's this tough
It's just-
balance that, but I still don't see it.
I
but
don't
maybe,
see where
but
the
maybe,
slight would have been, but
but
then
maybe
again,
it's because we're outsiders in that
once
fact,
again,
and that's what I
on the
feel.
since
that's
we were
what-
topic,
Yes.
since I was said on that little, since we talked about 9/11 at the beginning of the episode.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's an interesting thought. Now, let's continue. All right, so other lessons and little bits that he let on.
Well, going back to James mentioning how Tokyo feels more lived in, I would say yes, it's a more realistic take of Tokyo because you see some of the seedier aspects of the city, like how he had to take shelter from the rain, and he had his altercation with that escort dude.
Yeah, like I wanted to say Yakuza type prostitution dude, but anyway.
I don't know if he was a Yakuza member, but
Probably not, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
One of those very
It's one of those
low-level-
shady characters who apparently was involved with an underage girl. But in any case,
And then we got to see a gun in a Shinkai film, which
Yeah.
is very interesting too. How that played a factor in the movie.
and just to see how people adapt as well.
And remember, he talked about in the Q&A, and this is one thing about you say adapt. He talked about growth, about the characters and how they were moving forward. They were growing. They weren't stagnant. You could see that as you got from the beginning to the end for all of them.
And you see this at the end of the film too, where I'm not going to mention what happens, but there's a conversation where he has with an older woman. This is a bit into the future, where the main character has a conversation with an older woman whom he and the female lead, I can't believe I forgot their names, but they helped her and they were one of the last people they helped before
Well, no, they
other
didn't.
events happened.
They didn't help her remember because she was the one after they closed. So they never got to fulfill her request.
Oh, I thought it was.
Nope, that was not the same old woman.
Oh,
That
I
old
thought it was
woman-
the- I thought it was the same old woman.
No, that was not the same old woman. There was a different old woman, and then they said, you're going to be our last request. And then probably they had some more, and she was the one after, and they never were able to fulfill her request. And that's why he
Didn't
kind of
they-
felt that.
See, I was thinking otherwise because they had mentioned how she had property, but the other place was smaller, so I assumed it was that one.
Well, we can rewatch and see which one of us, but I
It'll
feel
be
like-
a few months before we get to rewatch it, I suppose.
Yeah. But yeah, well, yeah, that was an interesting thing when you think, oh, it's not a spoiler, but it kind of is. I guess some people were disappointed. You saw it in more the criticals where I guess they were thinking about overarching because they thought, oh, climate change, all this. But he doesn't exactly reflect that in the movie, even though Shinkai has been talking about it in the interviews and stuff like that. But it's more in an area about personal responsibility and the choice that's made at the end of the movie. And that's all we can really say.
So that's enough. So really enough about the movie for now. Until we see have a better chance to, like, you guys are just like, I'd like to see the movie, obviously. So when is there any sense as to when we'll see another, like, a somewhat wider release in theaters?
It'll just be next year.
It'll just be
Yeah, I
into
think
next
it'll
year.
be
It'll into
early next
2020.
year from G Kids and stuff like that. And hopefully, unlike Mirai, which kind of, I don't know what happened with that movie for distribution in Canada. Hopefully it gets physical release in Canada as well as the US.
would look-
Unlike Mirai, which only got US and you had to kind of import through the back doors. Just to get.
Yeah, with all the stuff going on, maybe.
But since G Kids has it all, hopefully that's a better chance because they always get things up here, and it'll be probably in a Walmart for $20 plus tax. Which
Oh
is
yeah,
really
well
nice.
that part yes, but more like I'm more thinking about
The
just
theaters
theater
definitely it'll probably be up here. It's like at a wider release because they do that. Like what is it? G Kids is doing Promare in a couple of weeks, and it's getting a wider release across North America for dub and sub, and
Okay.
it's here in Canada as well.
All right. So
I'd say Wuthering With You has a very, very good chance.
let's go back. Let's go to Shinkai's words, because the Q&A. Anything that stuck out?
Sci-fi doesn't sell.
Sci-fi doesn't sell.
Yeah,
Okay, so
doesn't sell.
what made you say that? Tell
So-
me
Go
give me
ahead,
the story
Kevin.
because I know you're looking through notes. Go ahead and talk. I'm just gonna bring out a prop for just something, just not necessarily a prop, but because you had me thinking about this. Okay, go ahead.
So this question was broached by a Shinkai otaku who finally got their attention to have his question asked.
And he had a shirt, of course, with I think it was like one of the movie things on it. Like he wanted that question asked.
So he said that he noticed how with his string of films, it's transitioned from having some more sci-fi elements to being more modern and contemporary. And he asked what caused that change.
Okay, so
And he said how honestly,
I could see that. And yeah, that's fair because it's more slice. Like, okay, I'm sorry I interrupted. It's more of a case of like let's look back on the evolution, like from his early films to these recent ones. Yeah, they were more science fiction. I mean, Voices of a Distant Star, Place Promise. Those were very sci-fi type movies. And then now you get more slice of life with Your Name.
so
But yes,
he said that now I have a wife and I have a wife and a child now. So the things that happen in my daily life is what I take inspiration from. So he mentioned the torii gates that he would see throughout the city, and if I remember correctly, he said how they don't really have, or he
Any
feels
meaning he don't have any
Yes.
meaning. But the interesting thing is that whenever they get to a torii gate, it's like they bow. Or when they're building something, they don't like disrupt the torii gate, or at least minimally as possible. You know what I mean?
Yes. So encountering things like this is what he draws as inspiration, or he can maybe use it as a theme or as a point of conversation in the films, or he'll just feature in the films. And he also mentioned how, yeah, to be honest, sci-fi doesn't sell as well as it used to.
did he use those pretty much those exact words?
More or less.
More or less.
And did that get a
And-
reaction? What type of reaction would that have gotten with the crowd?
I wouldn't say
Not much.
the audience reacted that much.
They reacted more, I think. What was it? I forget the one point where he said something to the effect that the movie, like the demographics in that, was more for the teen audience and stuff like that. And that one, I guess, elicited a few groans, I guess,
Well,
from the younger
kinda,
adults.
It's kind of like
But they're
you
like,
have your
we can watch
intention."
the cartoons too.
Oh yeah, then that's like saying My Little Pony. So and wow, and who ends up being its most significant audience?
And he mentioned how, so with the whole topic of a sunshine or a rainy person, like this is a term that the Japanese use for people. Maybe because they bring in bad luck, or maybe they just brought the rain. Like that's a thing that people say in Japan, and that's why that's one of the reasons why that was featured in the film as well.
We're talking a degree of Japanese superstition. Or is it superstition or just
I
something?
think it's more of just a saying.
Yeah,
Okay.
more of a saying, I'd say. Something like that. That's more
But
of what he was
obviously,
trying to get at.
us as non-Japanese speakers, maybe these are concepts that would really be foreign to us. That's what it sounds like, anyway. A Japanese native speaker, would be able to get the nuances in these concepts.
I guess that's
A lot
why he
more.
was pleasantly surprised, I guess, still, that so many people want to watch his films from overseas and stuff like that. And that he's building it more for the domestic audience and stuff like that. He talked about that and stuff like that. And you got that when he was talking about the Torii Gates. And as we said about Sunshine Boy and Sunshine Girl and stuff like that.
Well, okay. Remember, I always cite Ken Nakamatsu's reaction to Love Hina. And when he found out about its overseas popularity, he said he would try to cater a little bit more to his overseas audience in his future works. Maybe there's something to be said with just sticking with it. Being Japanese here, because maybe that's its appeal. That's the real appeal here. That's a lot of the honest appeal to its overseas fans. I mean, we are at a point where Japanese pop culture has had its thing, and it does have its influences in other parts of the world, in North America, and I know some people will be pained to hear this in other parts of Asia. Some people don't like to admit that.
What was it? Bill, the streaming service that teamed up with Funimation, Billy, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're a big thing in China too. And I think most of theirs is probably anime content, right?
Yeah, so, but then...
So that's
or just the influences, or concepts, influences, styles, designs, etc. Asian pop culture, more or less, has its... like that. The modern East Asian pop culture really starts in Japan for me. For a lot of people. And then it just went to other parts. And yeah, they've made it their own in other parts of the world, but it clearly has that influence whether we like it or not. Okay, I may be thinking too much here. But there's something to be said about, sticking with the DNA. Another thought that sort of came to my mind, and Mo asked me if there was a question I would have wanted to hear asked. And I asked him, and he told me he never had the chance to ask.
But as we said, the Q&A, and I think all of them were like this, where there was no microphone or whatever, since it was just a normal theater. They basically said, put your hand up and hope they pick you. Yeah. And so there was a lot of people there, and I think no one at the back got a chance. Let's put it that way. It was like basically mostly the front.
Well, it was one level, right? The theater was one level?
I was stadium seating, so.
Stadium seating, okay. Yeah, it's one level, rather steep. Okay, here's the thought. The question I had was, how does he feel about the criticisms that he faces that his movies are always the same? I think he may have indirectly, like they're all like he's the Nickelback of anime directors. But the thing is, did he kind of address that in anything he said?
I believe he did, but this was where I tuned out for a moment, so I don't know if you recall what he said, James.
Do you remember what it was you were thinking of? And then I might remember offhand.
Okay, well, I only really caught at the tail end of that. I feel like I missed the main point, and then he said something along the lines of, and like, oh God. I just know that he essentially acknowledged that there were some criticisms, and he felt like he used this movie as an opportunity to address some of those criticisms. I can't really claim to know the context behind that comment.
Yeah, that one I think was from the first question. That was in regard to, remember we were talking about the last one and disasters and stuff like that. That related into some of that as well, and that it's like him trying to grow from each movie and stuff like that. But I would say, sorry,
go you finish.
No, I was thinking I don't want to call it orator or whatever you want, but he definitely, as we know, he's one of those few where he is basically the creative vacuum, the force. He's directing, he's writing, and all that stuff. He used to do everything, but now he still has the big vehicle behind the movies. You know what I mean? So
he's still the man. Like he's still.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I will say that Weathering with You is the least Shinkai film yet, in the sense that it's not just about a guy and a girl meeting and they slowly drift apart.
But there is a Shinkai moment at the end.
Yes.
Thanks for the
I like to call it the Shinkai.
But there was none of that. Well, okay. But can't say there was none of that. It's just, it definitely didn't feel like, oh, they met and slowly but surely they're drifting further apart, because that happens in Voices, that happens in 5 centimeters, does that happen in Place Promised? I don't recall.
I
Sort
can't
of, yeah,
remember,
sort of.
but I forget there was the other one, but I can't remember.
Your Name for sure.
Your Name
for
it,
sure.
does it in a different way,
But yes, it happens there.
but it happens.
They're like, I would say, if we want to think about it in the context of Weathering with You and what we saw, it was more, there were a lot of other elements. All I can say is the gun is one element and stuff like that, and it kind of drives the story. So it was a more natural progression. You know what I mean, in a way?
Because I would say distance was not a theme this time around. Whereas you could say in virtually every other movie, except for maybe The Garden of Words.
It was.
But
Okay.
it was definitely,
Yeah.
I would say,
That it
you
was
have,
the theme.
I feel like, definitely very character driven if you think about it for this movie.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So in
that's
many
anything
ways, maybe the movie speaks as the response in some ways. I mean, you had me thinking, because you had me thinking. Well, when you said this whole sci-fi doesn't sell line, and you talked about that, you had me thinking about that the question I wanted to ask. And in some respects, maybe he has tried. He has.
I think he's melded
he's
it
tried
in a
it,
different way as he ages, and as we heard his responses, and he talks about there's a bit of fantasy, but then there's the slice of life and stuff like that, and melding it together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's his
and
way of
there's a bit of
changing.
fantasy in there with the Sunshine Girl element.
I think this is the curveball. Like, well, he go out of his comfort zone, but I think he's just, in many ways, yeah, he's changing, but he is trying something different, but it's another element that really never came to mind.
And that's because he's changed as a person.
no, of
well,
course, as you talk.
well, what
He
is
has
it?
He has different experiences in his life now.
Yes.
He has a family he needs to feed now.
Well, keep in mind, you mentioned the wife. I remember, I think when he made 5 centimeters per second, not
was
5
the
centimeters.
girl, she was no, it was Voices. of
Voices,
Distance,
because this
and
was
she
his-
was the
she was
both-
the-
they were all voice acting. Yeah,
because
they did everything.
because
They
Shinkai
did
at the
pretty
time
much
voice acted it. This is one of those extras that, because in my copy of the ADV version, the original had Shinkai and his wife's voice in the main characters. That was the extra. And I know that, I think in one pressing, the pressing I have, I didn't have that track.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
I don't recall having that. I think that was and I never got it switched, but that makes it a nice conversation in and of itself. But that's the same, that's the same woman, right? That's his wife.
And
So
that was the other thing too, because remember that last question, he was talking and asking about that long lost short animation stuff like
she and
that.
her
Remember?
cat, was it?
No,
No,
not
it's
she
a
and her cat.
different
It's a
one.
different one from
Oh,
the
wait,
same
we were-
time as.
Yeah. I
And
think
he's
I know.
like,
And
you're
I think
one of
Jesse
10
may
or
have-
20 people. And he
Yeah,
said that would have.
it was 20 or 30 people. Yeah.
And he's like, no, I don't want to revisit that. He said it's He basically said it was not
Sucks.
good.
20 or
Sucks. It's
20
garbage.
or 30 people who knew about it or something to that effect, right?
Sucks. It's never going to come out.
Oh, okay.
The poor guy is
Just like that one random Gundam episode.
Well, I mean,
that will
this
never
is
come out.
Well, as I said, this is like one.
Tomino hates it.
And with all due respect to Jesse, because I know he is not a fan of Shinkai. Jesse, our friend Jesse Betteridge. He can tune out the rest of that. Tune out the entire first 2/3 of this
I guess
episode.
he's not listening to this episode then.
Well, okay.
Like, he definitely didn't go to 10.
Well, I'll give a final thought, and we don't have much else to add to this, do we? I guess we can add Mohammed's thoughts when he comes back, when he rejoins us in a future episode. But is there one final thought you want to add to this?
The niece is hot and Nagi is a
You
master.
just destroyed the effing, like, plot line. Don't say the niece. Now they'll be wondering she's the mistress. Then they'll be surprised.
Well, yeah, all the more impetus in 2020 to
Nagi
watch
is a
it.
G.
I know.
what a
the
guy.
The brother is his senpai, remember? It's like the young brother.
No, he was not the senpai. He was the sens. You can even say he's the sensei, man.
Okay, so well, we're done there now, right?
Yes.
Okay. You had me thinking when you talked about the criticism leveled at Shinkai over using kind of like being inspired by a real life disaster to, even though it wasn't directly it didn't directly reference the 2011 earthquake. Well, you had me thinking about this book. I'm holding in my right hand a copy of A Tale for the Time Being by Japanese-Canadian author Ruth Ozeki. This came out in 2013, and I haven't gotten too far into this. This is my sister's copy, and I've held this for a year and a half. And I'm sure my sister is wondering when I'm going to return it. Basic outline is this is about a woman who in the Pacific Northwest, I think in Washington State, who comes across a Hello Kitty lunchbox that contained the items belonging to a schoolgirl back in Japan. And they surmise that it's debris from the 2011 earthquake that had gone across the Pacific. That's the basic premise of this. So we get to hear the story from both the writer, from both the woman who discovers this lunchbox, and then the story of who this lunchbox belonged to, who was a schoolgirl who was not in a good place. That's the basic premise of, as far as I could tell, for a tale for the time being.
She made it like that. Remember the one story about the motorcycle and stuff like that, and it got washed over, I think, to BC.
Yeah,
and the guy's like, "Oh, I got my bike." And it's like
It's
everything was
something
terrible.
like
But
that.
I got
Well,
my
there's a
bike
lot
back.
of those, and this was a highly acclaimed book. This was a Man Booker finalist. I do want to read it. There's a lot of other books I want to read. I apologize to my sister, but as for the condition of this book, it was like this when I got it. But let's start. You just had me thinking of that as we end off that thought. Oh, one other thing, and I thought I'd just to end the Oddesey, because we've talked about this every so often since we came back.
I think I beat you on getting KOR to Canada,
yes.
which is kind of funny.
My aunt, because remember I told you I had this sent to my relatives in
Boston.
In Boston, and then it got to New York, where my cousin's mother, my aunt in New York, and then she was here over the weekend, so I finally got my copies of the KOR manga. More than 3 years after the Kickstarter campaign. So I'm
real physical stuff.
Yes, and trust me, and thank you, Auntie, thank you, and thanks to my cousin for really going through the trouble to do this for me, to take this in and eventually get this to me. So I say thank you. I didn't realize, and I really say thank you, because now that I see these books, I knew they'd be big, but I didn't realize
they're big and heavy. And I told you,
heavy.
I told you, like, I got mine through just digital manga itself, and I told you that it got opened by U.S. Customs because the way they packaged it, it looked like they were bricks of cocaine.
Well, they were bricks, that's for sure.
Like they'd put it in like brown paper and all this stuff. And if they were looking at it, I bet you they thought I was smuggling drugs.
The other extra I got were these little magnetic bookmarks as well of each of the three main characters. That's the little extra I got.
Oh, so was that one of the add-ons you got?
Yeah,
because I know they were doing
may
add-ons.
never use.
Oh, okay. Because I was thinking about that, and I'm like, I was figuring that was the add-on because I knew.
I'm not going to say I'm worried about them being
and the physical, right?
I'm not going to say I'm worried about. I'm not going to say I'm worried about them being slightly damaged now, because they were in transport. But I'm just glad to have them, and as I said, it's a story in itself. These books are probably more well-traveled than I am.
We finally have another Shonen Jump title coming out.
What's that? Oh, that?
Yeah, this was
Shonen
Jump. Yeah, that was
Shonen
Shonen Jump. Yeah, and it's one of the older ones that made over in like City Hunter and stuff like that. But we are getting the anime stuff back.
Please, somebody release the City Hunter manga.
Okay.
Well, what was it? It started with an R, remember?
You're
it
thinking
was
of Raijin.
Raijin, and it was the guy who created City Hunter that actually, remember, he's the one behind it all. And so when they need to do edits, they said he would do it like on the fly. It was
Raijin,
ridiculous.
Yeah, I have the first copy of Raijin sitting right there.
I'd love a Fist of the North Star manga re-release, but we need an anime reboot for that.
Anyway, so okay, I guess we're done with the Shinkai stuff. I guess we'll hear most thoughts when he comes back on the microphones, and maybe the friend that took the fourth ticket that was originally intended for me, but I was working. Okay, so we're like 15 minutes into this taping. We want to get this roughly an hour. We want to do a quick bullet segment, I guess. So we have a couple. This is James's first appearance since the Kyoto Animation Fire. Right? Do you have a thought you want to share? Now, a month, like all these, like more than 2 months later, or roughly 2 months later. Since then, a few more names have come out. Whether of the victims, a few more victims' names came out. Whether the families of the victims liked it or not, because there's a lot of controversy concerning that.
I know they had two competing police agencies about that, and it's a very different, like, I don't think we can really comment on it because from our perspective, overseas, especially from a North American perspective, what happens is they usually release the names, and the reason is because of public interest and stuff like that, and it become beyond just a private affair and stuff like that, especially in these type of cases. And in Japan, it's a different thing. They still have more rights to privacy and stuff like that. So you can see it if you understand the culture and stuff like that. So I understood where they came from, even though if it had happened in somewhere like North America, that would not fly. It would not fly. Yeah, they would have went to court and they would have just said
and
no.
We probably would have never known the names if the family didn't want it that way. So
the interesting thing thinking about that though, Mike, is you know about Violet Evergarden, the special and stuff like that. So they managed to get it over into Germany because Kyoto Animation wanted it to be shown. They finished it the day before the fire. That is just insane to think about that. Finished it. And then the other thing was the director, I believe, of it said for the credits, everyone's going to be in there, even the victims.
They'll be mentioned.
Which is interesting.
Their names will be in the credits.
It sounds like their names will be in there. And all the people that worked at Kyoto Animation will be on there too, which is a very rare event. Usually it's just the people that worked on it, like as a major contribution and stuff like that. But the director wanted to make sure everyone was mentioned because it became such an event.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is they said, well, the movie for Violet Evergarden, that was supposed to come out in January. Obviously, they'll have to delay it and look, but we'll see what they have. And then there was some of the artwork, remember, you heard survived, and that's an incredible story in itself, too. And they took some of that and showed it, I guess, in Kyoto. I forget, it was either at some bookstores or at a gallery, but a showing of what survived the building one, which is crazy. And then the unfortunate part of the story, and another one reared its ugly head yet again this week, is it just boggles the mind why people think, and I'm not sure where the mindset, and we've heard about it before Kyoto Animation Fire, and I'm sure we won't see the end of them. Is there was one for Square Enix, and then this week it was Visual Arts of
There's
just
been
a guy,
threat, right?
A threat, and who knows whether they will actually go, but you always have to do, especially in these type of things, when such a major thing has happened after that. And the other thing is the actual perpetrator, thank goodness they got, and we'll see, hopefully the justice system will do what it needs to do over there. But it's one of those things of maybe he did make these threats, but it's tough because they got to make these judgment calls and stuff like that. And it sounded like maybe Kyoto Animation does a contest for novelizations and stuff like that. And I think that's how Violet Evergarden also came to be and stuff like that. And so I think he might have had a novelization in there, and that's why I said, oh, they're stealing from me and all this. But it's just crazy how those things just go.
And stupid, really.
But I don't know. It just boggles the mind when you think about it. That's all that matters.
Yeah, it does. It does.
And hopefully it's the other thing is I'm just amazed about the outpouring for the money and all that from all over the world. Like you think about going into not only the bank account they set up afterwards and stuff like that, but also for that, was it the GoFundMe that Sentai set up? But the funny story about that GoFundMe Sentai set up for John Leffert, and there was another one you told me about, but the other part was, remember Cool Japan put some investment into Sentai, basically.
Yeah,
and so that investment and that connection was able to get a connection to the lawyer who was handling the response for Kyoto Animation. He was able to get in contact so they could figure out what to do with the GoFundMe funds to get it to that bank account, which is kind of interesting to say the least. But hopefully they'll be able to use all that. And they said it's tough. Like they said, we're going to try and help the victims. We're going to tear down the building, maybe make a public park and do all this other stuff. But it's just a crazy amount of money, and to try to get it right is just, it boggles the mind on so many levels.
Yeah. Cool Japan was a government initiative some years ago by Taro Aso, the then prime minister, I think, to promote Japanese culture. Mm-hmm. And he, Mr. Aso now is, by the way, is the finance minister in the current government. So, okay, but just to backtrack just a little bit as to what the Cool Japan initiative was.
And a failure.
Well, no, that's what
maybe,
they were
yeah.
saying,
Well,
is that there was some cronyism, and they got rid of some of the cronyism.
But
now, like,
there's
I'd say the
something-
Sentai
there might have
investment is probably a good investment, and then, what was it?
Well-
Hirano supposedly is now an ambassador, and she's the first voice actress to be an ambassador, which tells you something there too, right? Given
Good for
that was
her.
yeah. Well, there's I guess that.
Well, you know, because of what ADV did.
But yeah,
okay,
no.
so
I know you were saying something.
John
about
the
that.
smart man.
Yeah, I know.
I
you
know
said,
you were
said that
saying,
last
you were
month.
saying that
Yep.
about, what was it, Sentai, and originally I think you said it in passing that I guess some people in Japan didn't believe they were a real company or something like that, and it's I guess it's so bizarre when you think about it. I guess
Well,
we
as I
just
said,
came
once
to
again,
accept it,
it
even
comes-
though we thought the names were
Yeah,
crazy to begin with. Anyway,
we knew
remember?
who they were, but as I said, did a lot of people in Japan know who they were? But that was another story. But we had that discussion already, sort of, right?
Wow.
Okay, so that's one bullet item. I just want to. This is as much as I will say about this. Let's talk the Vic thing, because there was some key decisions last week. I don't know. I want to say too much about it. All I know is on the topic of GoFundMe's, I think we know where some of that money's now about to go. So,
And supposedly one
and I'm pretty sure a lot of those donators probably aren't happy about it. But
Wait,
okay.
what happened with that? I am not aware of
A
this.
lot of the a lot of key aspects of the defamation lawsuits that Mignogna launched were
Look, I know
pretty
the-
much
thrown out, right? I
Yeah.
know about the countersuit.
The
failed
countersuit,
against
yeah.
Jamie
Yeah, Jarmy
Marchi.
Marchi was thrown out and stuff
on
like
top
that.
of that, you know, there's this thing they call it slap lawsuits, basically just to try and muzzle countersuing for the purpose of muzzling. And the thing was the judgment again that went against Vic, as far as I know, the outside version is. Well, yes, he lost, but now he's also penalized with having to pay the legal fees as well for Jamie Marchi, among others. So, well, as I said, the GoFundMe money being put to use.
And we
He
also
was
found out
getting
more
GoFundMe
things.
money? You mean he was getting GoFundMe money?
Oh yeah, they started. There was a
remember, there
GoFundMe
were
for
some
his
people
legal
that
defense.
support-
Well, it was the Resin Bull Rangers, I'm assuming.
Huh?
The Resin Bull Rangers. That's what they call
I
it.
really don't know the factions in all of this. I just know that existed.
His diehards are called the Resin Bull Rangers.
Okay.
Resin Bull, as in from FMA.
Cool. Cool.
But I know they
But,
said there was a lot of documents that we learned about some things that we probably never would have thought of about Funimation. Some of them were obviously not. I don't know if they would be true or not, but a lot of the people at Funimation were like, "What are you talking about?" I guess it was one voice actor in there. Like, how would you know when you're just coming into the booth and all that stuff, saying that there was, I guess, a casting couch at Funimation with Chris Sabin, and people were just shaking their heads.
All
It's like,
interesting
and talking
accusations.
about, it's like, was it sexual harassment policies and all this other, and it's like, yes, there were actual policies in place for the actual employees that worked at Funimation and stuff like that, and the contractors, which are the voice actors, since they're independent contractors, it's a different type of thing, you know what I mean? There isn't, like, for a lot of those ones, there's a policy, but they don't go through the rigors that a normal employee would, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's what people forget. It's so tough.
Well, as I said, it was an interesting week there.
I'm
Ongoing,
sure.
and,
I'm
probably as
sure
mu-
he'll
and-
bite the dust soon enough, because I don't know how it got even this far.
Yeah,
But
now we're
I guess if people want to do it, I don't know.
Yeah. I guess that's as much
Waste
as-
your money, Vic. Waste your money.
Whatever. It's not ours. Okay. The first batch of early bird IFF tickets for next year's convention here in Toronto in June went on sale. The $30 tickets, which were snapped up within roughly 24 hours. All of
I
those.
think it was just a one-day type thing they do. For
I know.
those
I admit it. This time around, I did get a ticket, although I can't predict 10 months into the future either. Although there's another, like, that's IFF, and obviously that's the people behind AnimeRevolution. They've had some PR nightmares in the last month too. We talk because on the topic of Me Too, and Anime News Network has been on a roll with these type of things. I mean, just on the momentum for the whole Vic Mignogna story earlier this year. They did a expose about some unsavory characters who went to AnimeRevo. And those were some interesting. Like I mean,
was an
Jesse
expose
sent this
because
to me.
I think they had talked about other people and other conventions,
Yeah.
but this one took the cake.
Yeah,
Like it had so many layers, and you're like, how in the world did this even
Yeah, Jesse
occur?
Like Jesse had already stated, I think, on his Twitter feeds, and to us that he wasn't. A lot of things he had issues with the way it was run, and he hinted it to me, and then he forwarded me the Anime News Network article and gave me this, and I could see where he was coming from, why he felt this was pretty poor. Who's the head, Kan Nyo, who I believe we caught a glimpse of at IFF, but he's at the center of this one of the people at the center of this controversy. But we'll link to it. I don't want to try and go too much into the details of the article itself, or maybe we will, just a little bit. But
To say the least, it looks like they showed up and then he went down to go, and who knows what he was thinking was going to go down if he was going to strip him of the badge then and there, which I think most people thought would happen.
And hope.
And then
But he got
it just took this bizarre turn about, what was it? His mother was there and his mother would escort him. And then this letter from his psychiatrist and all this other stuff.
Saying he wasn't a threat. He'd be, backed up and chaperoned by either his mother or his girlfriend. Because this guy apparently,
and there was another key element. There was another key element, I think, that supposedly was left out. And if he had heard that, I guarantee he would not have been let in that convention.
What was that key element?
Oh, I forget what the key element, but
criminal proceedings or something, or
there was something legal or something, but I can't remember what it was.
It was something about him didn't break his probation.
Yeah, it was something. I thought it was
pending
about a
trial
probation
for possession of child pornography on this gentleman. So.
Okay, so yeah, if that had been, I guarantee you he wouldn't have been let. But for whatever reason, he decided, okay, I'm going to let him in for all these other reasons. And who knows, maybe he thought he was going to get sued or whatever, but it was still very poor.
Poor judgment?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, like, yeah, I mean, and if he was worried about the lawsuit, I think he could have won at least a PR battle if he kept them out.
And if we're going to have these policies and procedures and all that stuff that are at all the conventions and stuff, you should at least stand behind them. You know what I mean? And it's like you're going to say, well, I understand you have all this stuff, but we have to stand behind the spirit of the policies we put in place and just show them the policy. You know what I mean? And say, here's the door.
Yeah, but
it's not simple. But it's not simple. You would think, but
just skimming this article, and I tried to read it, but it was so much of a read. It was
very in depth. Like it went through all 3 days, and like the second day, I guess people were really ticked off, and then I guess someone called the police to come and get him and stuff like that, and they advised that he should leave the building. You know what I mean?
It was also the police who said that,
and they were the ones that told them about that probation. He's like, what are you talking about? I had no idea.
So in the article, in the ANN article, it says that the police informed No that him being there did not break parole or probation, so it was up to him to decide whether or not he would.
As in the organizers, or as in Kan No. It does. Just on first blush, this sounds pretty badly thought out.
But at least I don't think he ever thought getting and organizing an anime convention would ever land him here. That's for sure.
I will say this much, and I don't know if I want to say how much else. Is there anything else we want to add? No? Yes? No? Before I go with the zinger here?
Let it out.
Let the zinger fly.
Here's the zinger. Well, it says here that, he would be backed up, chaperoned by his girlfriend. If this guy has a girlfriend, considering everything he's apparently done, I really have to examine how I conduct myself.
Well, I question how he even got one. Like, you read the things, like, how in the world is this possible? It just boggles the mind.
Yes, that's the thing. That's the amazing part about this. Well, it's just $30 for me. Anyway.
At least we have a clean criminal record. Think about it that way.
$30 ticket.
So far as we know.
Well, it's for the courts to decide. Well, on that note, is there anything else we want to talk about before we go? Because we
should let them know that Sentai's store finally ships to Canada. They've been talking about it for over 2 years, and now this week they said, guess what? We ship to Canada. And they seem to have quite a few sales, like over the course of the year, probably just as good as Right Stuff. I don't know what their shipping costs are going to be for Canada.
So that means
you can ship The Legend of the Galactic Heroes, the
I was gonna say that. I was gonna say that. You stole it from
US, and we can like not leave it.
I was going to say that.
So how many people are you betting are going to try and import it over the border? It's like, are we saying
3 people?
More than one hand, basically. Count
3
on one
people.
hand. Count on one hand. Okay.
Count
One
on
of them
one
might
hand,
be
right?
me.
Oh,
You got
I'm sure you're saving up.
Well, I
Okay.
like Daniel Itheze.
all I can tell you is
I could go into that blind.
they have put no, like I watched all the streams, so it's great and worth it, but I'm not sure if it's that expensive knowing how much it's going to be, because the other thing is when they've had their sales, everything has been on sale, but Legend of the Galactic Heroes, they've kept it. They have not reduced it from MSRP at all.
Yeah, because
they know,
they'll
right?
have
They
no
know.
margin.
And they can. Sometimes
they know.
Sometimes you just say,
And that's the only way to get it.
Sometimes
That
you just
must
say-
have costed a lot of money, because
Yeah.
that was the boondoggle. That was one of the things that we had heard that the Japanese didn't want to put out because they were asking for astronomical amounts of money. So something broke down in the Japanese side to finally let them license this film or this series
And films and everything.
and films
else.
and everything.
I think some of it had to do if they had the new series coming out too. I wonder if some of that came to play too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
who's to say? But there's a thought right there. Oh, on that note, I guess since we are talking about buying stuff online, and then I talked about Chemical Orange Road, did you get the OAVs already?
No, not yet, because one thing in my order is holding it up. But
I should have asked if I could add another copy for that order. But the thing is, I looked at the Amazon price too, and it might be cheaper to go Right Stuff, even if it's just one single thing, pay the shipping, pay the duty. The price might be about the same, maybe slightly less.
Yeah, you can still shop around and find it at other places and stuff like that.
Like where?
That's
No,
the thing.
really, where?
You could either go to, Robert's Anime Corner Store, but that one, I don't think that. But Amazon Canada did have it. Amazon America, I can't remember if they had it, but Canada still had it. But the price I'm trying to think was maybe under or close to what the retail price was in US dollars, but it might have been just a
but
bit
then
above.
if you still want to go Right Stuff, you can get a little bit less on it. The current price of the OAVs, because this is the last, because I am trying to get it. I would like to get it, but the current price as of now is $62.57 Canadian on the Amazon site.
It's hardly worth it to buy from Right Stuff anymore, because you're paying tax on the US price, and then that needs to be converted. So you're paying tax on the American price, and then you're paying 34% more because of your conversion fees.
So you think I should just stick with the Amazon side?
Like, what are you buying?
Oh, it's the OAV in the first movie.
Yeah, like
For what?
Chemical Orange Road.
You know what? If you do an order, let me know, because I need to buy Utena before it goes out of print.
but yeah.
Oh, you want to? We'll just put together an order.
Because I need because that
Well, I want also buying.
Because Right Stuff confirmed that they're running out of copies of the Utena
You know
collector's
what was
edition.
You know what?
funny
Maybe
about
we
that
should just
story
put-
is that, you know what?
It might be
You
worth
wanna
doing
know where I
just
found-
just to get just put together an order to get the free shipping, and then because there's a few other movies I want to get.
You want to know where I found
Night
that
is Young
Utena,
Walk On
Kevin?
Girl too.
Ironically,
Where?
I was at Anime North and John Sarabella at the Media Blasters.
God
booth.
damn it!
He was not just selling Media Blaster stuff; he was selling other stuff too,
He
from
wasn't-
Discotech, and he had that Utena thing. And I got from for $200 all in.
That's
Taxes
not
and everything.
bad.
And that's Canadian.
That's not bad.
Canadian. That is
You
good.
mean he
All
wasn't
in.
just selling porn and like?
Well, is
scantily
Utena
clad
porn? I
figures.
don't know. Could be.
Yeah, I'll say
Well,
anyway.
she does turn into a car.
Yeah,
people go
that's
that
the
way.
movie.
But
Yeah, I'll say, what is it?
it really depends on what you're buying online and who you're getting it from. If we want to say on that, it's like, yeah, the Discotech and the Sentai, you kind of have to shop around and stuff like that. You can still find deals, but I still know that Funimation, they haven't changed, I think, yet, but I wouldn't be surprised they go to Sony, is that they're still selling on Best Buy Canada and Amazon Canada for just under American price in Canadian dollars with tax, and that's still the best you're gonna get there.
Anime, I might still buy the right stuff, but sometimes I will compare with Amazon.
This stuff is now went up, and it's hard to find now. And they used to be easy to find. They were Warner Brothers, so I'm not sure what's happening there. And the reason that's a concern is Viz and Crunchyroll teamed up.
Yeah,
stories all around.
Manga, I will not buy online through Right Stuff anymore. It's just
you know how you buy it. It's like, as we said, you buy it through Chapters for the sales they had.
When they do 40% off.
Yep, and you get the coupons through Means to get the extra 10%. Plus, you make sure you get either 10 times the points or 500 for each book you get. So I have all these points.
You need to let me know these means that you're talking about.
But anyway, let's put it this way.
You're a seller, he's a shopper.
But let's put it this way. I went in for the Yen Press sale last month. This month was 7 Seas.
I forgot about the 7 Seas sale.
Oh, you should have done it this weekend because you had the 10 times the point.
Yeah.
So I got on top of that. And then I had...
don't remind me.
What was it? The buy one, get one 50% off. So some of the ones that weren't in certain things. But those things and then Dark Horse had the buy two, get one free. And that actually gets you a good amount off.
The buy X, get one free is never worth it for me. I'd rather just wait for the straight 40 off.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sometimes they don't do it for some of them. Dark Horse, I know, does not do it.
They've done it for Dark Horse before.
But only for certain things, not for adult graphic
novels.
I
I don't care about the graphic novels. I just care about the manga.
I'm saying, no, that's what manga is included under.
No, they've done it for Dark Horse before. They've done it once.
Because I've only seen like the buy two, get one free.
They did it last year before. They did it last year once.
I'll have to see because I don't remember seeing. I only remember the buy two get one free.
Yeah, and remember, I go to.
But basically, each week you go onto Chapters and you see what their deals at the week are. That's basically what you do.
They do okay because if you're away from the manga side, I buy their Lectrum.
No manga deals this week.
But
there is no manga deals this week. But I looked at what I got with bonus points and with the 40% off or the thing. I'm buying below and sometimes well below the American price because a lot of the time I'm getting the 40% plus the extra 10% plus the points.
I miss
because there was a time.
That all said, I miss comic.
Because last year's Viz sale,
it's basically close to Comic Den levels. Let's put it that way. But you have to know when to buy. That's
because they finally did a Viz sale last year, like towards like the end of the year, and I think it was stacking with this other discount that I don't think should have happened because I was getting like Kimi Todoke and Skippy for like 55% off.
Yeah, there's sometimes where weird craziness can happen and you can get some good deals.
It's never worth it to buy in store anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it isn't. You just use it as a place to pick up.
The only thing, though,
seriously.
The only thing, though,
I just go in there and then get a coffee at Starbucks and get my points there too.
So we do get it. The 40% and stuff like that. But the other thing is with maybe the buy one, get one 50% off or those other ones. The reason they're also not as good now is they're not really even giving the discounts on Amazon or Chapters anymore for being online. It's almost like they're so close to the in-store price of Canadian retail price, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. It's like they used to say, oh, you can get this discount because nothing much is happening online. Now they're just saying, well, F you. It's like, we need our cut.
Yeah, and honestly, if you need it day and date, just get it from Amazon, and sometimes you'll get a small discount by pre-ordering early enough.
Mm-hmm.
If you really need it that day, like I've saved 20 to 25% off by pre-ordering on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I think we're done.
Oh well.
Well, it's like we're an hour 15, so I think we have to get you home anyway.
Well, let me mention a couple things.
Okay, before we go tonight.
Anybody wanting to see Promare, it's going to be on the 21st, 22nd, I believe.
Oh, here we go.
So the weekend is the dub, and the Monday and the Tuesday is the sub.
Yes.
Okay, so some items on the calendar. Let's see.
Anyone who likes Man on a Mission, who sung theme songs for Golden Kamuy and Gundam And
Oh wait, were we talking Queen Elizabeth?
no, they're gonna be at the Adelaide Hall.
Okay.
So they're those dudes with the wolf heads.
Okay.
But yeah, they sung that they sung the Raise Your Flag song for Iron Blooded Orphans. That's how I know them. But so they're gonna be in town. I don't remember the date though.
You know what? Next time we have you on, we talk at length about going to the K Festival. Okay.
That's also the 21st. Oh yeah, we were gonna.
Yeah,
we were thinking.
Yeah,
of doing
but
that,
we went way over time.
And then there was
yeah.
the first week of October, I know, has Dreaming of Dreaming Girl. That's the one for the Bunny Girl one, that movie from Aniplex.
The bunny girl dreams of whatever.
No, I Dream of Dreaming Girl or something like that instead of the Bunny Girl. Because each novel was a different thing.
Oh,
but for the anime, they just used the Bunny Girl. But that was interesting that they're doing a release in Canada and the States in the theaters for that because they're only doing a sub-release of the series at the end of the year. So it probably only met certain expectations. I would
Okay.
say.
And then just one last thing.
And then we'll end it off.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing First Love this weekend. So it's the new Takashi Miike movie.
Oh boy.
And that'll be Friday night at 11:59.
This is at TIFF?
This is at TIFF, yes.
TIFF ends this weekend, so.
So do you think there are still tickets?
There are still tickets for it.
Okay, well, yeah, I guess certain ones.
Good,
right?
at least there's
Yeah.
tickets for something.
So I have a ticket that's unclaimed. If any of you want it.
Assuming this comes out, I get this online beforehand, in due time.
No, like I have a spare ticket because my friend can't go anymore.
Oh, wow. Crash and burn. All right. Well, that's it. Well, we got basically what we want to say. I mean, so we got Mohammed's episode out there. Glad,
So where was
hope you
Mohammed?
enjoyed it, Mohammed.
Where was Mo exactly? The man who this all ready for us?
Did he
Yeah.
give you a reason?
No, he didn't. We'll have to ask him next time.
Damn it, Mo.
It's
Glad-
because of all
you-
the
hope-
pain he went through to save our seats. It's like
No,
he injured himself,
yeah. Instead, we're just
body and soul.
we're just throwing him under the bus for missing this episode. But so hope
It's
you
just
enjoyed it.
season, we should-
So Mo, hope you enjoyed it. To everyone else, hope you enjoyed it as well. Anything else?
Muhammad was really the MVP that day.
Oh no,
so
and
He was.
but honestly,
He truly
you give the
was.
man a
you
lot
do
of.
have my gratitude, Muhammad.
He put his life on the line to get us the tickets and the seats, literally. And Kevin was lucky because if we hadn't said that he was in the washroom, the lady pointing at us was going to give his seat to someone basically in the rush line because we were in the middle almost of the theater
Way to
near
go.
the bomb.
We'll keep your seat warm, Mohammed. Thanks for listening. Good night from Toronto, and join us again for another edition of the Anime Roundtable.